It all started with the slam of a garage door, a sound that, for me, usually signaled the end of a long, quiet day. But this slam wasn't mine. It was a jarring, metallic thud that echoed through the quiet cul-de-sac, followed by the deep rumble growl of two monstrous engines being silenced. What in the world was going on? I swear, my heart skipped a beat. A mix of pure adrenaline and dread washing over me. I raced to the back of the house, peering through the small window in the laundry room. And there they were. Not one, but two colossal, jet black Ford Raptors, shoehorned into my personal two-car garage. They were so massive. Their tires barely cleared the door frame. I just stood there, my brain struggling to process the impossible sight. Had I woken up in a parallel universe? Was this some kind of sick joke? The scent of gasoline and hot rubber filled the air. A primal, aggressive odor that felt like a violation. I felt my hands begin to tremble. This wasn't just an inconvenience. This was a brazen act of entitlement. Of pure, unadulterated arrogance. I took a shaky breath, pulled out my phone, and dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? A calm voice asked. I must have sounded completely unhinged because my voice came out in a high-pitched squeak. Someone parked two trucks in my garage. I stammered. The dispatcher was patient, probably used to dealing with far stranger calls. But I could hear a hint of suppressed disbelief. I gave them my address, trying to articulate the bizarre, unbelievable situation. The minutes that followed were a blur of nervous pacing and whispered curses. I wasn't an HOA member. I never had been. My property was a private island in a sea of regulations I had opted out of years ago. The thought of an HOA committing such an act was beyond absurd. It was criminal. The sirens, when they finally came, felt less like a rescue and more like the opening act to a theatrical disaster. Officer Miller, a no-nonsense man with a perfectly squared jaw, arrived first. He took one look at the trucks and then at me. And an unreadable expression crossed his face. So, let me get this straight, he said, his voice flat. You're saying these two vehicles just appeared in your garage? Officer, I was home all day, I explained, gesturing wildly. The door was closed. I went to get something from the garage. And there they were. It's like a magic trick from hell. His partner, a younger, more empathetic officer named Diaz, saw the two vehicles and let out a low whistle. Whoa. That's a first. I explained to them that I was not, and had never been, a part of the HOA. Officer Miller's eyes narrowed. That changes things. He made a few calls on his radio, his voice getting firmer with each word. It felt like the ground was shifting beneath our feet. He then approached me, his expression now one of professional resolve. We've confirmed your status. You're not subject to their rules. We're treating this as a civil matter, but with a trespass violation attached. We can't move them. But you can. They're on your property. A slow, wicked grin crept across my face. You mean I can call a tow company? Officer Miller nodded. Absolutely. They're trespassing. The feeling was euphoric. A calm, cool vindication that was 1,000 times more satisfying than screaming. I pulled out my phone again. This time to make a much more satisfying call. My stomach churned with a mixture of righteous fury and a strange, almost giddy anticipation as I called the tow company. I need 2 Ford Raptors towed from a residential garage, I said, my voice as calm as I could make it. The dispatcher on the other end paused. 2. From a garage. Yes. They don't belong to me. I could hear them typing. Then a little cough of disbelief. All right. Sir. We'll be there in 20 minutes. The hum of the phone line after I hung up was the sweetest silence I'd ever heard. It was then that I saw her, striding down the street. A regal, self-important air about her. The infamous HOA Karen. Her name was Brenda. But I'd never called her that. She was just Karen. She had a tight, perfect bob and an even tighter, more perfect scowl. Her eyes widened as she saw the 2 police cars and my garage door ajar. What is the meaning of this? She shrieked. Her voice a piercing, shrill sound that made my teeth ache. What are you doing to my husband's vehicles? Officer Miller stepped forward, a weary look on his face. Ma'am, these vehicles are on private property. The owner is having them towed. Karen's face went from pale to beet red in an instant. Towed? You can't do that. I'm the head of the HOA. This is a homeowner violation. This man has been a menace to our community, constantly refusing to adhere to. She trailed off, her eyes darting between me and the officer. I watched her, a silent observer in my own nightmare. And a sigh escaped my lips. I couldn't help it. It was almost a physical release of all the frustration she represented. Brenda, I said, my voice low and steady. I'm not in the HOA. Never have been. The words hung in the air. A final, unassailable truth. Her mouth fell open. A gasp of pure shock. Officer Miller chimed in. She's right. Ma'am. He's not in the HOA. He's completely within his rights. The tow trucks arrived then, their enormous hydraulic lifts groaning to a stop in front of my driveway. The sight and sound were magnificent. Karen looked from me to the officers, then to the 2 hulking trucks. Her facade began to crack. She started to sputter, her sentences dissolving into disjointed fragments of outrage. But the landscaping, the trash cans, the aesthetic of the neighborhood. I just shook my head slowly. A faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. That's not my problem, Brenda. My problem was 2 illegally parked vehicles blocking my garage. And now they're leaving. One of the tow truck drivers, a grizzled man with a handlebar mustache, hooked a chain to the first Raptor. The ratcheting sound was a triumphant, metallic symphony. Karen's eyes darted frantically. She pleaded. She demanded. She threatened lawsuits. Don't you know who I am? She screamed at the drivers. They just looked at her with the blank, unimpressed stare of men who had seen it all. Officer Miller had heard enough. Ma'am, you need to step back. If you obstruct the tow, we will be forced to take you into custody. It was the ultimate, shattering moment. The power she had so carelessly wielded, the perceived authority, the control over others, evaporated into thin air. Her shoulders slumped. The arrogant posture, the furious glare, all of it crumbled. revealing a small, pathetic woman who had overstepped her bounds in a way she never imagined possible. The second Raptor was winched out of my garage, its tires squealing a song of sweet liberation. As it was hauled away, I watched a single tear roll down Karen's cheek. A silent testament to the bitter, undeniable defeat. The garage, once a cavernous prison of chrome and steel, was now just an empty space again. The air smelled clean, if a little dusty. The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the earlier cacophony. I stood there, taking it all in, a sense of quiet peace settling over me. The world hadn't tilted on its axis, but a small piece of my world had been put back in order. This wasn't about winning. Not really. It was about boundaries. About the fundamental human right to have a place that is your own, free from the intrusion of others. I looked at Officer Diaz, who was filling out some final paperwork. "I can't believe this happened," he said, shaking his head. "Some people." He didn't finish the thought. But he didn't have to. We all knew. I simply nodded, a tired, thoughtful smile on my face. There was a part of me, a small, selfish part, that wished I had a chair and a cold drink to just sit and watch the final moments of the tow. But it wasn't necessary. The feeling of the space being mine again was more than enough. It was a victory not for me alone, but for anyone who has ever been made to feel like their personal space, their small piece of the world, was up for debate. This whole crazy incident, from the shocking discovery to the quiet departure of the last truck, served as a powerful reminder that not everyone who claims authority actually has it. It was a lesson in standing your ground, a firm but peaceful resistance to an overreach of power. It begs the question, in a situation like this, where one person acts out of a misguided sense of authority and another defends their property, what is the clear line between right and wrong? And who ultimately holds the responsibility for the conflict? Share your thoughts.